Okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right, so we're going to start with a
Thank you.
review of the minutes. I have a comment. We'll start out there. Anybody else have a comment?
I do.
Go ahead.
I honestly don't remember volunteering for that thing. I guess I did. It was the electronic stamp subcommittee.
Oh, well, I haven't done anything anyhow, so
Yeah. I think we all volunteered, to be honest, but
yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're in charge, actually, Angela. That's my recollection of that.
All right, well, I'll leave the comment as stands in the minutes.
Here we go. So the comment I have in terms of a change I think that needs to be made is right here under 5B. This is what we're going to be talking about later. Mr. Moore's application for direct examination. That
Yep.
Mr. Kuzmich noted that the applicant has an associate's degree and not a four-year pre-professional degree. This has been the case with previous applications. That, in fact, is not the case. He does have a bachelor's degree, and we'll talk about that later, but I don't want the minutes to reflect something that's not accurate. Okay. Bob, you okay with that?
I'm here. So I'm going to change the minutes to, right, to show that I have the wrong degree in there. Right, he has a bachelor's.
Okay.
I-
And we have actually approved many people with bachelor's degrees in the past. And I'm going to go back to the agenda. And
all right, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as modified by David's comments on Mr. Moore.
I'll
Second.
second this, Angela.
Angela, second. Okay, further comment?
Okay,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Abstain, is that right, Twig?
I have to abstain. That's the meeting I couldn't attend.
Okay. So I think we have a quorum anyhow, so we'll move on. Comments or concerns of any person present today? Bob, you're monitoring any kind of texts or anything
Yes.
like that, or
I don't see
messaging?
anything in the chat or anything, no.
Okay. So I think we're going to move on to DCP investigation complaint status, and I will share. Here we go. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
The status report, is that right?
Yes.
Is that- Okay, good. I can't tell if I'm sharing that or not, but it looks okay. Good.
No, it's fine.
All right. Jeanette, do you want to present anything, or Janita? Or Pamela?
Yes, yep. No, the board, unfortunately, that's your screen. I just wanted to try to get to my screen, but now it's not letting me, so I don't know.
I could stop sharing and share and be given to you, but
I'm not, no, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be able to share it.
you just need to
I'm
minimize the meeting, and then
Yeah,
you can probably.
Yep, that's what I'm,
While Janita is looking at, this is Pamela Brown for the record. There were two cases that you listed on the agenda for us to discuss during this meeting. I just need to let you know that those are cases handled by legal, by Paulette. So
Paulette's on, and she's aware of that, so she can comment on those two cases that were in the prior minutes. So I think she's prepared to do so.
Right, so it might be helpful to make a separate line on the agenda for legal rather than for DCP investigations, because it's there, once they have the case, it's theirs, it's out of my division and into the legal division, we're separate. So for the agenda item, you might want to put that on there so they know that they need to attend the meeting because you're looking for someone to provide an update or a status.
Yeah, but Bob, perhaps we can make clarification under the agenda item that it's both legal and investigation, so we can cover it all, to Pamela's point.
All right, going
Right,
forward,
or a separate line, because I just had this happen with another board meeting yesterday, and legal wasn't noticed because it was all under investigations. They didn't see that they were being requested to attend.
Yeah.
So there
Understand.
was no representative. So if you have a
But we
separate
got a
line
representative
for their
here.
invitation, then they will know they need to show up for the meeting.
Understood. We do have a representative here. So Paulette, if you could unmute yourself and speak toward the two, we'd appreciate it.
Here we go.
There you go.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
I hope everyone has
Morning.
had a good summer.
Morning.
It's like, it feels like fall already, which I don't mind, but I would like my summer to go a little longer. So the two cases that you wanted an update on, the 2017-78 and 2017-125. So 2017-78, I've settled out that case with the respondent. And that was a case involving, initially it was using the name, the word architect in their name and in the advertising. And so they had changed it a while ago. And so what was left was a lot of information online that still had the old name. And so he's worked to get that information cleaned up from the internet. And there was also a settlement amount involved. And also with this respondent, he had presented to three different towns on architectural projects. And so I had him write a letter to each of these towns to inform them that his company was never licensed as an architectural company. So there's a few pieces that were involved. He was very cooperative. That case is now closed. Now the other case, 2017-125, is still an open case. I've tried to settle it with the respondent, but I think we may be at an impasse because I think there's a common misunderstanding in the design community that if they contract out, and Phil and I worked on a similar case where he was a step down, and I might need him on this one again, or whoever wants to be on it, where it's a similar issue where it's a company that is not licensed that believes that if they contract out to architects, they can offer architectural services, but that's not what the statute says. Our statute is pretty broad in terms of what is considered architectural work, and that includes consultation. So if a company, a non-architectural company, like a design company, is offering architectural services to say, okay, here client, I'm soliciting to this particular client, and I want to offer to build this 20,000 square foot, design this 20,000 square foot building for you. But don't worry about it. I'm not an architect, but I can contract with an architect to get the work done. Our statute's very clear. That design company is offering architectural services, and that's not legal. They have to have the proper credential. So that's a common issue that I'm seeing with some of these cases. And so I tried to settle it out. I'm waiting to hear back from the attorney on whether his position has changed on that. And if not, I'm going to be issuing a civil investigative demand, because if their position is that what they're doing is not offering architectural services, then I would like to see all the work that they have done over the years, the contracts, et cetera, and then we'll go from there. So that's those two cases.
So I'm not sure if this is something that you could really discuss right now, but not about this case, but the more general discussion, because the project delivery method known as design build is employed many times by the state or within the private world as well. So how does that change when a company teams or puts together an agreement that includes an architectural company in order to, but there's a single contract with the owner to design build a project? Is that how is that different from this specific case, where the person's been advertising that they can provide through consulting services? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if I'm clear on the question, but let me see if I can. Let me see if I can explain this. So let me just go back a little bit. And so a while ago, the Attorney General's office, and I think I've shared this, and I know I've shared it with is it Lauren Cahill?
Angela.
Angela? I shared it with somebody on your board, which was an opinion by the AG's office. And the question that was asked, it was a while ago, but the question that was asked is, and this was a company that they were architects, they were licensed architects, but they didn't have a architectural entity credential. And so their question was, can we still, we're just going to be the people that get contracted out to do the work. Do we still have to have an architectural entity license? And the AG's office says, yeah, you can't run, run around this. You still have to have a license. So as far as the way I'm looking at the statute is, if anything that you're doing, if it's not exempted and it falls under the definition of architectural work, and you are a company that wants to consult or offer any of these services that are not exempted, then you need to get your credential. Otherwise, think about it. Why would any company then need to, get a credential? You can just say, okay, I have all these projects that I want to do. I'm going to solicit all this work, and it's architectural work. I'm the main contractor on it. This is my my deal for my company. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get engineers, I'm going to architects, I'm going to contract with them to do their bit of it. And therefore we're fine. So what you've done in effect is you're offering architectural services without the credential, but because you have people you're contracting with, you think that you're covered. But I don't think that's what the law is saying. Otherwise, why bother have the entity license when you can just continue to offer this work and just contract out?
All right. Well, I think that's fundamentally different than a design build contract, which is a specific contract that identifies various parties that are providing a service. What I think that the distinction here is this company, or a company that is not licensed architectural or engineering corporation, but is offering as a pass-through design services, is not the same as saying having a distinct design build agreement with an owner.
Yeah, there's sure a fine line there, though.
It's a fine line, but we do allow. I mean, there's been. I know. I don't want to speak to the legal part of it, but certainly design build is an accepted delivery methodology in the state. Right. We're not denying that, but we can't. So, but a builder who says, "Oh, I'll get you architecture," and advertises such as a service, that's a whole different kind of a thing. Or anybody else.
It's Angela. I have a question.
Go ahead, Angela.
So given that there's a lot of confusion about this, is there a way we can issue a clarification?
We'd have to know what question we're answering, and then that would have to come from the department. But there is a way. I mean, it's called a declaratory ruling. I know Phil was part of an earlier board that the DHAR board, I believe, which did a series of declaratory rulings. But in the current environment, we'd have to know very specifically what questions being asked. And
Well, I
then we
heard,
would have to
yeah, I
get an
heard two here,
interpretation.
the initial one about this case, 125 was, can you contract for the services and still advertise yourselves as a entity, right? I'm probably simplifying it, but can you contract for the services? And then the second one was about the design build relationship. I think it'd be great to clarify both of those questions.
And I don't even know what I don't understand the design build relationship. I don't know what that is. So someone would have to-
Yeah, I mean, I would say perhaps there should be, I can have a discussion with you and other attorneys within the state system that could speak more about that. I'm just trying to understand what, in terms of action for the next meeting or future meetings, Angela is requesting a clarification on
well, we could focus on this first topic of today, which was of this investigation of today, which is regarding consulting for services.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need to clarify something that's already been, is clear, which is
I don't think it
company
is
cannot advertise for architecture engineering services if they are not an architectural or AE firm.
And it's not only advertising though, David, it's not just advertising, because for example, a company like that might put a caveat on their website that says, but we're not an architectural firm. That doesn't mean anything to me if you're still offering and still doing those services. So it's not simply just about the advertising. I think it's not just advertising. Advertising is part of it. It's also the contracting out for these services and offering these services, because like the one case that Phil and I worked on, if we don't have a complaint about it, we don't know that it's happening. I'm sure it's happening a lot. And I think there is a general misunderstanding with design firms that you can't just contract out for these services. You can't, and with our case that we worked on, Phil and I worked on, the person was an employee who worked there, and that still wasn't okay.
Yeah, no, I understand. I still think it's different than what is a design build. I think this is distinct from a design build delivery methodology.
Yeah, no, they're very different. They're very different. I mean, personally, I think there's even confusion as to when and where and why a corporate license is required. And that may just be stupidity of people not reading the statutes and following what needs to happen. But
so I think there's other agenda items that we might get into on that. So we should hold that for a moment. And welcome to Lorraine Askloff.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi,
Okay.
Lorraine.
So I would like to move back to the agenda and moving into old business. And Paulette, you can't leave.
so sorry, I just want to say thank you to reporting on those cases. Those are very old, and I just want to thank you. There are still some cases from 2018 as well that I'm sure are being worked on, but it's in the board's interest to hopefully close out the very old cases, and appreciate the effort.
Yeah, and a note, the 125 didn't appear on the list, but should be on the list still as an open case. So we don't know why it didn't show up, but it should still be there.
It is.
I couldn't find it.
It's on the list I have.
Line 13.
Really? Where is it?
Should be on the first page, Mr. Chairman.
No, it's the second page, line
Second
13.
page, sorry.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, I stand corrected. I couldn't find it before, but if it's there, it's there. Okay, so I think in terms of Janita and Pamela, I think we're done with this item. If you're welcome to stay, but do not feel obligated to stay on the call.
Oh, that was my question. Okay, thank you. Have a good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take
Thank
care.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Anita. Yeah.
Old business. 4A. This is something, and this, I guess we're back with Paulette. And this kind of dovetails into the discussion, we were sort of having before. Well, no. I think this is, no, this is not that. I'm sorry. This is not that. That's coming later, I believe. I don't think we have an update for this because Julianne is not present. But this is a question about procedurally. So Bob, do you have any information on this, how we're going to be handling? Or is that still one of those sort of pending statutory changes that didn't get, because of the session got canceled, didn't happen?
David, I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
I am going to follow up with Julianne.
But I think that is the case. It's sort of pending.
Yes.
And we don't even know if this is going to hit in the special sessions upcoming, or likely it won't get pushed further into the long session, the 2021 session. My guess is it's going to be that, and these statutory changes won't come into effect until next spring, late winter, spring, or something along those lines.
David, that's kind of what I heard too, not specifically on this, but just from my participation with other boards and their issues that they have pending.
Yeah.
A lot of boards are getting the same type of feel that it's going to the next session, not coming up.
Very good. I think we can, I think we should still continue this as an old business item until such time as, the statutes are in fact adopted and or voted on by the legislature, or not, or rejected, whatever the case may be. But it is part of the department's package at this time. Moving on, 4B, continuation of discussion concerning renewals of corporate practice relative to ownership requirements. And this gets to Angela's question before. Bob did discuss how the department looks at these, and they do look at ownership requirements.
Yeah, we had a discussion last meeting, and Bob reported that he had questioned the corporate members and had great feedback from that. I thought we still had an action item from Julianne, though, to go back to Secretary of State. I have to pull up the minutes, but I thought there was an action item on her part to check the interface between Secretary of State.
Well, I think she responded to that in the
ACP.
minutes. You'll see that there is no direct connection between the Secretary of State when, there's no reporting mechanism back and forth.
Right, so we're satisfied as a board that the self-reporting is adequate. I'm not agreeing with that. I'm just making a statement.
I'm not familiar anymore because it's been years since I, had a corporate corporate practice. But in the renewal, Bob, are there questions that talk about ownership in the renewal form?
Yeah, there's an attestation, I believe. I don't have a copy in front of me, but that says that you've complied with the correct.
Yeah,
Bob, how about this, Bob? Can you provide us, the board, with a pro forma corporate application that shows the questions that are asked as part of our next board package?
Sure. That the application's online. I could also email it as a.
Yeah, just attach it as a that shows all the questions that are asked upon corporate renewal. We're talking about renewal. Because the initial application, clearly there's a substantive a process by which you have to prove that you meet the criteria. But the renewal, and I think, and again, I don't want to speak at like I'm an attorney because I'm not. I'm just an architect. But typical from what I've heard in prior conversations, when somebody attests to something, then you take it at face value. Because if they're lying, they're committing some kind of a crime. And that can catch up to them. But you don't necessarily try to disprove their attestation. In fact, you don't do that typically. And I can tell you at the state, the resources to sort of audit every single, or audit the corporate applications is not realistic expectation. So you take it at face value. If they're not telling the truth, that could very easily come out through complaint process, and then they'd have to explain in to do why their application was misrepresented, possibly.
So David, I think people do check the box. I think half of the time they're just checking the box and not even thinking about it. The other, and I think the bigger problem really is, and I've run into this many times with out-of-state firms, that they're just not even getting registered as corporate practice. They just have an architect that's licensed in Connecticut on staff. He's sealing the drawings, and ABC Company is the name on the title block with Joe Smith's seal on the drawings. And they're just simply not even going through that process. And I've run into it several times. And I think a lot of it's ignorance. I mean, I ran into somebody the other day who's practicing engineering in the state of Connecticut. His company's practicing as engineers, but he doesn't have a corporate practice license. This just came out of the blue from him. He's like, hey, we just found out we're supposed to have this other registration that we don't have, but he's got licensed engineers that are doing it. They're a mechanical contracting company, and they have licensed engineers that are just signing and sealing their drawings with a corporate name on them. So.
Yeah, you hear it all the time.
So, but just hold on a second. So there's two things. So any kind of sealed document needs to be prepared. There has to be an individual seal. You can't just put your corporate. That's
name on it. Then, and we just ran into this in New York because they do certificates of authority, where they won't accept it if you don't have the same thing. You're supposed to. If you're practicing as a corporation, you're supposed to be licensed as a corporation and have your individual seal on the drawing.
Right, and that is the case in Connecticut. You can't.
Right, I understand that. But what I'm saying is a lot of this company in particular, they have the licensed engineer. He's signing and sealing their drawings, but the corporate name that's on there is not registered in the state of Connecticut.
No, I understand what you're saying as well. And that's where the complaint process would probably have to ferret those things out, because
right.
Otherwise, or we could further inform the local building officials, but we've already informed them and given them the links to check, make sure when they're getting a set of plans to check for an up-to-date license. And we hope they do that. And if they find that they're getting a set of plans where the license is not valid, then they shouldn't accept the plans.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of them are not checking. I mean,
understand, but I understand, Phil. It's frustrating.
That's my venting for the day.
Thank you. So I'm comfortable with the process in place as far as the licensing board and the department goes in terms of attestation on the, but we'll leave this open so that everyone can see it for the next meeting. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, let's look at what does it look like, that renewal, that attestation? Does it say, penalty or whatever if you're not correct in your attestation, and take it from there. I totally understand that there's not a way for the state to, check everybody.
Well, there is. We just have to add staff, and that's frowned upon right now.
Not currently.
Yeah.
The resources do not exist. I understand.
And if it involves an audit, forget it. I'm out. We've done audits in OCPRO, and oh my God, I am like dying.
Okay, we didn't use the audit word, so we won't go there. Okay, or we won't. All right, new share. I will now. Going to bring up, all right, I just hope that this works correctly. Oh, maybe I didn't open it yet. I need to get to my, hold on a second, I'm sorry.
It's your second tab there, David. Oh, no, that's not the right document.
I'm not sure it is.
It was in our packet.
Yeah, I just want to open it.
It's, your eval, I think, David, the third tab, well, at least on the screen I'm looking at. ARE
That's the
eval.
Noskin email, but no, just give me a second. Do I have it open?
I think. That's it.
Oh yeah, that's it. You're right. I'm sorry. So anyhow, I did speak with Brian Moore, who I believe is actually on. He's on the call and he's muted right now. If there's any questions, he's here. And I spoke with Mr. Moore on several occasions. The first was sort of a general review of his package. And the second was a more detailed review of several of his projects to determine if he has the requisite experience for us to allow him to sit on the board. Just as a reminder, Mr. Moore does not hold an NAAB accredited degree. He holds a degree, 2 degrees actually, from, and this is why there was some confusion. And honestly, I felt the transcript from SUNY or Delhi University, SUNY Delhi, was a little confusing, but the way it works there is you first earn an associate's degree, but he had continuous attendance at the university, so he continued and got his bachelor's of architectural technology with a major in architectural design at Delhi in 2014. He then worked for 3+ years for architect Dennis Noskin in Tarrytown, and I spoke with Dennis Noskin, who then subsequently forwarded an email, which I believe was in your package, which is here, recommending, stating that he felt that Mr. Moore had the requisite skills to sit for the exams. So that's just in your package. He subsequently worked for an architect in New York City, Ted Moodis Associates, for another 2.8 years, for a total of 5.9 years experience. If we look at the MBE report, which you should see on your screen now, it indicates, actually a better document might be this summary, which shows required 3,740 AXP hours in the categories as indicated. If you look to the right-hand side, he has approved AXP hours in excess of all of the specific categories, and in total, roughly 2 point something, almost 3 times the required AXP hours. Let's see if there's anything I'm missing here. He exceeded those requirements by 7,472 hours. In looking at his work, the work that he demonstrated to me was commercial and corporate work, which has been the majority of his work, using construction types 2B and 5B extensively. Although I think he's done some work in Manhattan, which is probably high-rise protected work. So when I'm looking at an evaluation of somebody's credentials, even though we don't necessarily care if somebody has a NAAB accredited degree, they could have all their experience doing 5B construction. In this case, Mr. Moore has experience using more some of the more, I say, complicated construction types that you'd find in Manhattan, as well as commercial work in other places. That was satisfied me that he had the experience that we're looking for. So I am, and I think, and I make this point, I think he had excellent mentorship, particularly with Mr. Noskin in the early part of his career. That he's successfully documented and completed the experience requirements of NCARB AXP and that I feel under regulations 20-289-3A, I recommend that the licensing board allow Mr. Moore to apply for licensure by written examination as a candidate for licensure in Connecticut. Okay, I'll stop talking. Anybody have any questions for either for me or directly for Mr. Moore, who is on the call?
Mr. Chair, could I make a motion to accept him for examination and then we could have discussion?
Yes, you may.
I would move to
Angela.
accept the candidate for examination.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, we'll give it to Twig this time. Okay, discussion,
I have a question.
please.
What would it take for Mr. Moore to get the typically required degree from an fully accredited university or program?
So in Connecticut, there are two programs available. He'd have to apply and be accepted. One would be the UHART, which would be a 2D, which is, I mean, it might be remote now, but it's a daytime, you'd have to go there and full-time, presumably. Angela's a professor there. And the other one is the Yale Graduate School. Both are graduate programs. Both, in either case, would he be considered a post-pro? I don't know if there's a distinction at UHART. I know there's a distinction at Yale because he doesn't have an NAB accredited primary degree. So he'd be looking at 2+ years of further education full-time in order to get that. Alternatively, there's a degree program that it's sort of more nighttime, but it's at the BAC, and that would also require a lengthy duration and difficult because it's still typically there are in-class. I don't know if they've gone to online. I know they're also in the IPAL system, but that's sort of a different discussion. And it would take a number of years for him to get what essentially he's shy because looking at his transcript, which you all have, I believe, he took design courses every semester. So I think he'd be shy compared to what would be in a 5-year accredited degree program of a couple semesters of design, depending on the program. He might have had to participate in a thesis presentation, but he has most of the design and the technical classes that one would see in a 5-year program, just not as many of them as he would see. So it would be a substantial effort at this point, given that he is working full-time. So is it doable? Yes, we've had this discussion before. Is it, it would be at great expense and additional time. So anybody else want to add to that?
I would
And
just like
just
to echo your comments about it would be infeasible to maintain a full-time job and enter a program simultaneously.
And he graduated with his bachelor's in 2014, 6 years ago.
Yeah, cum laude, by the way. Like I think
Okay.
he had a 3.8 average or something like that.
Yeah, and I
look at that stuff, even though most people don't care at the point of, but I even looked at it when I was hiring, architectural interns or licensed architects, because I think it matters.
Yeah, and we've made similar exceptions in the past in these kind of situations.
Any other questions? Anybody want to ask Mr. Moore anything directly? I'm sure he'd be willing to answer. No? Okay. I cannot vote on this, but because I stood down. So, but I can call the vote. All in favor of Mr. Moore's application?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Post.
So we have 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and the motion carries. So congratulations, Mr. Moore. You should start taking your exams as soon as possible. He's got his
Thank you.
books right. I think he's studying. And we hope to see
And,
you on our roster one day in the near future for licensure.
Yes, we look forward to
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Congratulations, Brian. Please stay on the call. There's a little bit of an update about the exam coming momentarily.
Good thing. Thank you very much.
David,
Let me go
David?
back to, yeah.
The opposition, Twig, who voted? in
Okay, so
opposition to it?
Phil, Loran, and Angela were in favor, and Twig was opposed.
Okay. Okay.
And Mr. Moore, just as an FYI, I'm not singling you out. I'm pretty much always opposed.
Yeah.
I appreciate the openness.
Thank you, Twig. We one day we'll maybe make you a convert that it's okay because our statutes allow the alternative path.
I was
But,
hoping it was going to be today.
Yeah, I thought maybe there was a hope. I just thought I did such a good job writing this up, but I failed. So I'll work on it.
One of these days, you're going to wear me down.
Okay.
Good luck, Mr. Moore.
Thank you very much.
Now we're up to new business. 5A, application of Mr. Matthew Slightum to sit for the architectural registration examination per section 20-289-3A2 of the regulations for architecture licensure. I'm looking for a professional member of the board to stand down and review this package. Any volunteers?
Yeah, so even though I'm not really thrilled about volunteering, I will because I feel like it's my turn.
So thank you, Phil. Philip Cerrone will be standing down to review this application.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
And we'll inform Bob at a later date whether or not we can have that on the next agenda meeting or at some time in the future. And moving on, 5B, the following candidates have passed the architectural registration examination and are recommended by the Department of Consumer Protection for licensure, for licensing as architects in the state of Connecticut. We have 2 names on here, Bob. Are there any other names that came subsequently? I don't remember seeing any adjustments.
There are not.
Okay, so we have Lauren Gilchrist Began and Victoria Charlotte Brewster. Motion to accept these 2 candidates for license.
I'll move.
Loran will second.
Okay, Angela made the motion, Loran second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Welcome to Females to Connecticut. Thank
Aye.
you.
Lauren could be a male or a female name, so I'm not.
I did a little research.
Applications for licensure by waiver of examination. The following individuals were approved under section 21A-8 for licensing as architects in the state of Connecticut basis on waiver of examination with an end card. This is a lengthy list. There are 52 names. Are there any other names that should be added to the list? Bob?
Not at this time, David. There's more going on to the next agenda. They're coming in, left and right. So
good. That's good. That's good income to the state of Connecticut. So that's no action we need to take on that, correct?
Correct. It's for the board's information.
And following applications for the corporate practice of architecture, the department approved the following applications under section 21A-8 of the general statutes. There are 2 Cube 3 Studio from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and Sargenti Architects from Paramus, New Jersey. Again, no action required. I do want to add, item to the agenda to follow up on some of our prior discussion, and this is why I asked Paulette to stay on, and that is to discuss maybe a little bit further, and perhaps we'll need to refine this agenda item in a future meeting, but a question I have has to do with the same line. I think you kind of answered it before, but if a corporate entity, if there's a firm practicing interior architecture and architecture in Connecticut, meaning they have principles that are both, they're separately. There are interior architects that are interiors designers who are registered in Connecticut, and they also have licensed architects that are registered in Connecticut. Can they practice as a business entity as architects? Under what circumstances can they, I guess is the question. You're muted, Paulette.
I think I like being muted. So let me see if I understand your question. So it's a company and they have registered designers and they have licensed architects.
And they have principals that are both.
Okay.
The owners or whatever, partners or whatever, based on their, whether they're a corporation or an LLC. Our statutes have very specific requirements under both, in terms of ownership. But the question is so if you're both, but you want to deliver architectural services, so beyond the, services that fall within the category of architects, my presumption is that firm's ownership would have to reflect the statutory requirements of ownership as an architectural firm or an AE firm.
So under 2298B, so if a material part of the work is architectural work, then they have to meet what the requirements are under that statute in terms of ownership. I mean, I think that's just a simplest thing. I mean,
So 2/3 ownership by architects.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I don't think that would change.
Yeah, okay. Cut and dry.
I mean, was there a question that
Yeah,
you thought maybe it would be different?
No, I'm going to leave the general discussion there, and any more specific discussion I'll have with you separately that I failed to do in advance of this meeting. That really isn't relevant to this meeting anyhow. It's more relevant to my other job on the state of for the state.
I just like to go to strict reading of the statute, and that's what I always do. Just go back to, I look at the different elements in that statute and look at what the company is offering or performing, and then they got to meet the statute. If that's what they're offering, architectural services in a material part of their business, then they need to meet the ownership requirements in our statute.
Right. And the entity it would have to be an architectural corporation if they're signing a contract to do those kind of services, basically.
Yep.
Okay. I don't even know that we need to carry that any forward. There's no further discussion from my perspective. Angela, you wanted to report out on changes to the examination, I presume?
Well, you and I both heard from Manny yesterday, and Gina's on the call. What I heard, Manny's not on the call today. What I heard is that the exam as it currently is operating is that candidates can go take the exam physically in person at Prometric, but there's also a secondary method where they are remote proctored called ProProctor through Prometric, but that an announcement will be coming from NCARB sometime in November that NCARB will be moving away from Prometric completely sometime next year, 2021, probably the middle of the year, to a different company that will be engaging in a remote proctor type of situation. So it's hard to give exact guidance to the candidates at the moment. I'm sure nobody needs to stop doing what they're doing, but it's possible that some of your exams may be with a certain company to begin with and then change to another. They may be in person and then be remote. But just my advice is to keep in contact with NCARB and read very carefully all the communications that come from NCARB so that you're aware of the different ways you can take your examination.
Angela,
timeframes.
Manny's still on the call if you want to chime in on any of that.
Oh, Manny did join. Hi, Manny.
Hi, Ange. How are you? I don't need to say anything because you just got it all right.
Did I get it right?
Fine.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's all right. No problem. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns? Gina, do you have anything you'd like to bring to the meeting today?
No, I was just going to talk about, I wasn't sure if Manny was on. The only thing I know that they're having a discussion on October 7th. There's a webinar with NCARB, and I know I'm sitting in on it. I'm sure other people will as well. And they're going to be talking about how this is going to start working from November 16th and on. So we'll advise you more as we get more information.
Maybe mention of the New England Region 1 is having a virtual conference. It includes the educator conference. It's for Saturday, October 24th, if I remember from memory.
Correct. It's an educator conference and our NCARB biannual fall meeting.
Right. Any other comments, concerns of any persons present today?
Thank you for making me aware of staying on the call for that announcement. I'll tune into the NCARB webinar if it's available. This is Brian Moore, by the way. So thanks for the heads up, Angela.
Thank you, Brian.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just add, Brian, introducing you virtually to Manny Machado. Manny's on the call. Manny is our statewide ARE AXP coordinator for NCARB. So he would be a go-to person if you had any concerns or questions about the remaining process.
Good point. Resource to you and all candidates. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 6th. I would be shocked if it were not a Zoom meeting like this one. I suspect that we're going to be operating in this capacity for a good while yet, probably through the first and or second quarter of next year at this point, from everything that I can gather from what I'm hearing at the state, but we'll sort of update everybody on a meeting by meeting basis. And it's even a possibility, but the next time we are in person, we'll be meeting at some place that's not called 450 Columbus Boulevard. It'll be called 450 something else Boulevard. It's certainly a possibility that there will be a name change consistent with what's been happening lately surrounding Mr. Columbus or Captain Columbus. In any case, I don't have anything else, so I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great
Talk
to see you
you.
all.
Thank you.
Hopefully by the next meeting, the ladder will be out of the sunroom.
Who seconded the motion? It was David and
Phil.
to adjourn. Phil, okay.
All right.
Good to see you, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
David, could you stay on a minute? David?
Yeah, absolutely. Will do.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, there we go. I have to send an email to the NCARB then. I'm not sure. I'll call them. It's been a while in terms of the specific person to notify them for Mr. Moore's approval.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that, if you,
Well, you have a liaison. Now, since you were gone, there was an identified woman who was the liaison from NCARB, who's your like go-to person. Do you know who
Okay.
that is?
I don't offhand. I'll find out. I'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would, I've forgotten her name, but they've gotten better about that, so that each region, each state has like a liaison. And and I've met her at meetings. I would say, I mean, you could reach out to Josh Batkin and ask him who your liaison is.
Yep.
And copy me on that if you like. Either Josh or what's her name, the legal